In this video, I'm going to go through what fixed level of detail expressions are, how to create them, and also provide you with some example use cases. So, a fixed level of detail expression, or fixed LOD expression, allows you to do calculations based on fields that aren't in the view. And this is useful when you want to use the whole data set, even after you've filtered out some of the data for your view with dimension, measure, or table calculation filters, because fixed LODs execute before these filters. Now I'm going to jump right into some examples so you can get an idea on what I mean, and we'll walk through how and why these expressions work. Here I'm using the sample superstore dataset provided by Tableau, and the data we're looking at is the count of unique orders by province and region with a country filter for Canadian records. So the fixed sum is a fixed LOD expression that is the total count on the country region level. So if you sum of all of the distinct counts, you will get 102. The varying sum here is created with a use of an exclude LOD that will be covered in my next video, but I created it here just for reference, so when we filter, we can see the totals based on how we edit the filter. And so if we deselect Alberta, say here, this varying sum changes with the view. So now this 94 sum is the sum of all the distinct counts in the view, and we can verify that by looking at the bottom of the screen here at 94, and the fixed sum stays the same where it includes that record of Alberta for the country level. Since this is a video for fixed LODs, let's take a look at how this fixed sum is calculated. So all level of detail expressions are surrounded by curly brackets, and then the function here it's fixed, but there's others like include and exclude level of detail expressions, followed by a field, and then a colon, and then the aggregation of a field that you want to aggregate on. So for us, it's going to be the distinct count of different order IDs at the country level. You can even put if-else statements inside the aggregate if you want. So if you want your aggregation to be based on specific conditions, like to only count distinct for order IDs starting with 5 or order IDs within a certain date range, you can do that. These will just make the expression more complex, but the main point here is you can choose a level to do aggregations on. So if we want to aggregate based on the country region level, we just add region here. And then when we apply, we can see that the fixed sum changes to the different regions. So this fixed sum 4 is the aggregation of all the counts for the central region, whereas the 74 is the aggregation of the east region, and then the west here. Oh, I think we should put Alberta back in so you see the actual sum turned into 24. The order of these fields do not matter as long as they're there because Tableau will be able to create that hierarchy and filter based on what you're referring to. The one thing to note is that you have to have all the fields in place to create that level of detail. So say you leave out the country level by accident and you just have region. When we apply this, we can see that the fixed sum increases. And this is due to the fact that when we filtered by country to only Canada, there were regions in the US, which was the other country in the data set, that had the exact same names, so Central, East, and West. So those sums of distinct counts were added to the fixed sum in this fixed LOD to increase that distinct count. So we have to be really, really careful and make sure that any fields that we're referring to or filters that we're using are implemented in the fixed LOD. So let's add back the country field in our fixed LOD because we want it to be at the country region level. And when we do that, these fixed sums are what we expect it to be at the country region level. So next, I'll show you another example for dates where if these fields in your fixed calculation isn't put in properly, so at the level that you expect it to be, it could really mess up your results. And we'll do that with a dates example. So here we have the data for 2021 and in January and the week of January, the weeks in January for the distinct count of IDs, and this fixed sum is just the sum of everything in January. This fixed sum is the fixed sum of everything in February. So when we look at the calculated field, we can see that it's a fixed LOD for the year of the order date and month of the order date on the distinct counts of order IDs. So let's just keep in mind the January values for the fixed sum. So here it's 50, and then for 2022, it's 71. And if we remove the year here and then apply, we can see now the fixed sum is for everything in January, even if it's in 2021 and 2022. So 50 plus 71 earlier, it equates to this fixed sum here. And if we scroll down to January, we can also see it's 121. So identifying that level of detail you need is really, really important when you're creating fixed LODs. For this worksheet, you might be wondering, hey, how come the filters of the year show from 2019 to 2022, but even for the fixed sum, it didn't include the other years when we only had the month level in our fixed LOD. That's because the filter in place is actually a context filter, so it is applied before the LOD, and from the reverse pyramid here, you can see that fixed LODs are processed after context filters, but before dimension and measure filters. So the LOD is only working on a smaller subset of the data. And you can learn more about these filters in my last video where I went through the order of operations in Tableau, which are essential to know when you're working with a lot of complex calculations and any type of level of detail expressions. Going back to the fixed versus varying worksheet, I'm going to explain some use cases for fixed LODs. You can use fixed LODs to create percent of total calculations that will have the denominator staying the same. So the aggregate for the level of detail you're working on staying the same even when certain things are filtered out of the view. So for my case, I'm on the country region level, and these fixed sums will stay the same for the region level even when I filter out specific provinces. Like if I deselect Saskatchewan here, the West still has a fixed sum of 24 because it still uses that Saskatchewan distinct count. So some other use cases include comparing individual values with aggregated values, like I've done here, where I'm comparing the province values to the region totals. And other use cases include moving calculation averages as well. And there's also a lot more that I won't be able to cover in this short video, but I hope this video was useful for you, and thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to be updated every time I post a new video, I would love for you to subscribe to me. I post a new video every Thursday.